Good morning, everybody. Thank you all for being here. Um, I'm Tony Manalatis. I'm the moderator today. San Diego has been talking about housing for a long time, as you all know. A lot of plans, a lot of promises, but not a lot of change. That may be about to shift. There is a serious proposal on the table that could reduce home prices by 40%. The mayor is engaged. The coalition behind this is broad and growing. But here's the thing. The details aren't locked in yet. And in housing policy, as you all know, the details are everything. A clean, straightforward approach could unlock real home ownership opportunities for nurses, teachers, young families, first responders. Overcomplication will kill this before it gets off the drawing board. That's why we're here today, not to debate whether this is a good idea. We think it is. In fact, Ricardo developed this framework for this idea many years ago. And then once Gary jumped on board, things really accelerated. We're here to talk about what it actually takes to make this work. To do that, we brought in four people who know this issue as well as anyone in San Diego, and I'm just honored to work with all of them. I'm going to introduce them and then kick it over to Ricardo. Ricardo Flores is executive director of List San Diego, and honestly, one of the most persistent and effective housing advocates this city has. Ricardo has been pushing this idea forward for years. Ricardo, glad you're here.
Thank you.
Gary London is the principal of London Motor Advisors and one of San Diego's most respected real estate economists. When Ricardo needed someone to run the numbers and stress test the concept, Gary is who he called. Gary, thank you for being here. Amy Fawcett is president and CEO of the Building Industry Association of San Diego County and a dear friend. If you want to know whether a housing proposal can actually get built, not just proposed, Amy is who you talk to. Amy, thank you for joining us. And Nicole Lilly, last but certainly not least, I'm a big Nicole fan. Nicole is executive director of Our Time to Act, and she represents exactly who this policy is for: young San Diegans, working families, the people who love this city and are being priced out. Nicole, welcome and thank you for joining us. Ricardo, I'm going to kick it over to you.
Thank you. Well, thank you everybody for being here. Tony, thank you for setting all this up. And to my fellow panelists, thank you for taking time out of your day to speak to this really important issue that really bedevils us as a city and as a state and really as a country at this point, right? Really, let's level set here. What is the real challenge here that we're facing in kind of one image? It's this. 81% of the city of San Diego currently, as we sit here and speak, is zoned for one thing and one thing only: a single family home. That means a minimum of 5,000 square feet and one home on top of it. And that's what the pink reddish color represents. And the rest of it is around 19% or so is multifamily. This is why we have a housing crisis, because we have a zoning that is not matching the reality of where we are at. We're not alone. The city of LA is around 74% single family and San Jose is 90%. It's fair to say that those three cities alone have created a housing crisis that has morphed all through the country, and we're seeing prices continue to elevate. And so what's the history of single family zoning? Because oftentimes we're talking about this zoning as if it was ordained by a higher being, as if it was something as natural as rain from the sky when it's cloudy and the weather is not great. But the reality is this is a human made idea, and it was made by this man, Duncan McDuffie. He was a developer, and he was actually the past president of the Sierra Club. And there's a mountain actually named for him somewhere in Northern California. And McDuffie, as a developer, had created built a community called Claremont in Berkeley, California. And it is a beautiful community. It's still there. And the adjacent community, Elmwood, the deed restrictions were expiring. And along with that, a Japanese and a Chinese laundry were going to be moving in and a black dance hall. And McDuffie had the idea that was very common but very flawed, which was his property, the values of the community he built were going to be lowered. And so McDuffie went around, convinced the city of Berkeley to create a commission, and that commission went around the United States and tried to look for zoning that would satisfy his concern of segregating people. And McDuffie found a law in Minneapolis that mandated a duplex on each parcel. McDuffie just took the logical next conclusion and he cut the duplex off. And thus single family zoning was born. This was 1916. The city of San Diego, not to be outdone, in 1923. So it's almost been 100 years we've had single family zoning. And think about that for just a second. 100 years ago, give or take, we were a city of about 74,000 people, right? Now we are, 100 years later, a city of about 1.4 million and slowly growing. Yet we have this very antiquated system of zoning that's still with us, and it's driving up housing costs. Well, the city passed this law and they weren't really sure what it was either. In fact, in the actual ordinance, they put this little sentence in here. They wanted to make sure this did not affect any covenants or easements or agreements between parties. So they really weren't quite sure, but they went along with it and they passed it. So we now know a little bit of the history. We know where it comes from. How big is 5,000 square feet? Well, 5,000 square feet, interestingly enough, is about the size of a basketball court. So next time you're at a park or at a gym and there's a basketball court, go in the center of that basketball court and just look at how much land you have to own or rent to live in the city of San Diego, and 81% of it. That's a serious amount of land to purchase, especially in a community where land is scarce, especially in a community where there's over 1 million people. And so the question becomes, what can we do? How can we change this paradigm? Well, it's actually quite simple. We just go back and we subdivide land. So instead of 5,000 square feet of land, we now say maybe you own 1,000 square feet of land and you build a townhome. And this is exactly what you're seeing here. So one property and one family living here, now the property next door has 6 families. And so what does this look like? We did some renderings. And again, the height of this is only really based because of the garage, right? People are going to want a garage below, even if they don't utilize it, it's extra space. And so again, and these are fee simple homes, meaning these are single family homes. There's no HOA. There's no adjoining walls. There's enough space between them that they're considered single family. And here's the first. So the first floor would be obviously the garage. The second story would be your living area, your family area, or your in-law area in my case. And then, of course, your primary suite. Again, not magic. It's just stacked different. It's vertical. So the most important thing, and here's another kind of look at it. So I was getting a lot of questions about how much would this cost, and that's when we brought in Gary London. And Gary put together his team, and they came up with this report. And the report basically said that that townhome would be 42% cheaper than the single family home next door. 42% cheaper. Why? Because you're not buying a front yard and a backyard. But then we asked Gary the next question, which is, well, what would happen to the property tax base? Because again, if this destroys the property tax base, this is a non-starter. Well, this is what things got interesting. Gary and his team said that if 1.4% of the city's 280,000 single-family lots under its jurisdiction, or 4,000 lots, were to be rebuilt as townhomes and sold, the city would collect $430 million. Now, for all of you City Hall watchers, the city collects what? Around $750 million a year? And for the county, because the county takes 20 cents of every dollar, they would collect 450, and the school district collects 45 cents. They would collect 800 million. The pathway out for us is to look at land differently. And lastly, I'll just say this. If you're a current single-family homeowner, the value of your land is predicated upon what you can do with it. That's the law of land. And so by doing this, you're increasing that value, which is good, because ultimately, then it hopefully gives you the opportunity to make changes within your own property.
Thank you, Ricardo. Gary, take it over. Cost reduction, feasibility, revenue upside.
So I'm not, thank you, Tony. I'm not prone to using exhibits. I just get lost in them. But we prepared 3 reports, and those reports are quite detailed, and they're available to everyone that wants to take a look at them. And I thought what I'd just do is just highlight what I think are the most salient points. I want to say something with respect to this idea. With all due respect to Ricardo, this is not an original idea. The idea of townhomes and row homes not only originated decades and decades, over 100 years ago on the East Coast, but we're seeing this kind of idea of small lot infill development play out in many Midwestern and Western communities. We're seeing it in Portland and all over Vancouver, and we're seeing it in Austin. Bill Anderson just sent us a photo, a couple photos from townhome projects that he saw in Nashville. He was on a recent ULI trip. So the point is that San Diego needs to sort of catch up. And we can do it our own way, or we can mimic somebody else's way. I will tell you that this idea of eliminating minimum lot size is being studied by the San Diego City Planning Department as we speak. Ricardo and I, maybe some others on this call, are sitting on a technical advisory committee. They're going to come up with something. It may not be exactly what I want, which is just a complete elimination of single family zoning. It may be FAR related, which would be fine, maybe something else. The impact of the studies that we've done have already been felt at the city. They're working on it. By this time next year, we should see something in front of policymakers. That's our focus, is to make sure that our mayor and our city council are fully on board with these kinds of changes that we're talking about. We have good reason to believe that they are. The mayor's already expressed the fact that he's on board, and obviously he's directed his planning department in that regard. And we've met with city council members. We think we've gotten some support. We've met with people that normally would oppose projects like apartment buildings and infill throughout the city. We think we have some good support. What we want to do is make sure that we have impacted this conversation to the extent that we do it in a way where we don't mess it up, I guess is the best way to put it. I would tell you that while the minimum lot size in San Diego is 5,000 feet, many of the single family lots are much larger. So while 5,000 foot lots, if you demolish a single family home in, say, Claremont or Mira Mesa or Serra Mesa or any of these places, would produce 3 or 5 new homes. When you get into other communities that we studied, and we studied 9 different communities in San Diego, we're talking about larger lots, and we probably can accommodate a lot more homes on these same lots. And what our study demonstrated, as Ricardo has already suggested, is that on average, there's going to be a reduction across these 9 communities of about a 42% in terms of the price of housing. Now, what's important also in this conversation is we're not talking about affordable housing here. That's a whole other conversation. We're talking about what I would dub attainable housing, or housing for sort of the missing middle. To put a sort of a population or demographic point on this, we're seeing the San Diego regional population stabilize or go negative. A lot of the reason for that is people are leaving San Diego, or they're commuting to San Diego from places outside of San Diego, or they're moving to Arizona or Nevada or Texas. And the preponderance of these people that are moving are this missing middle, people that have families or want to raise families, but simply can't be accommodated in the kind of high density apartment projects that have sort of been the darling of the city of San Diego, to their credit. But that's one market segment. We're talking about this other market segment, which is families. And these are the people that we really need to retain to preserve our community, to preserve our economy, to preserve our quality of life, to make sure that our very communities transition in a way where they don't get old and stale. So what we did is we studied these 9 different communities, and in some of the communities, the cost reduction was a little lower, and some of it was a little higher, but on average it was 42%. And that's very significant, because that brings housing down. If we supply townhomes or row homes, or however you want to sort of architecturally dubbed the kind of housing we're talking about, it brings housing down in price by hundreds of thousands of dollars, which makes it realistic for this kind of family target. The other thing it does is it infuses. If we just add over the years sort of a modest amount of demolition of single family homes and additions of this kind of housing in these communities, we do it at a very conservative rate, which is what we studied. We're starting to transition older, sort of stale communities that need upgrading, but already have the infrastructure, already have the schools and the pipes and the sewers and the police and fire in place, with the kinds of people that originally occupied or purchased homes in these communities back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, middle income families. We're bringing these families back into these same communities. So that's essentially what the study does, and we think it accomplishes the point that allows it to be sort of a diving board for the city to make these important policy changes.
So I'm going to move over to Amy and Nicole, who are going to talk about real world realities with this proposal and who it serves.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for having me as a part of this discussion. San Diego's housing crisis is not simply a lack of desire to build housing. It is whether housing can actually get built under the current cost, regulatory, and political realities that exist in our region today. Housing development in San Diego is one of the most heavily regulated industries in the state, as well as throughout the state. And these regulations are dictating what can be built, where it can be built, how dense it can be, how long approvals take, what environmental standards apply, labor requirements, fees, infrastructure obligations, and more. The cumulative effect has made housing extraordinarily difficult and expensive to deliver. One of the clearest examples is CEQA. CEQA is often weaponized to delay or stop housing projects through litigation and appeals. Even when a lawsuit is ultimately unsuccessful, the delay can kill financing, increase carrying cost, and make projects financially infeasible. Time is one of the biggest hidden costs in housing production. In addition to one of the other biggest costs is not only time, but land. Every month of delay means higher interest costs, consultant costs, redesigns, inflation, labor escalation, and uncertainty. A project that pencils on day one may no longer pencil 2 or 3 days later. And in some cases, unfortunately, in San Diego and the region, this is 10 to 15 years later. These projects see multiple cycles of financing and regulations. So the question becomes, what type of housing can actually survive the environment here in San Diego? What we are seeing get built today is primarily infill housing, multifamily housing. We are also seeing a major increase in ADUs, thanks to both the state and the city, primarily the city of San Diego, who have significantly streamlined the approval process. However, the jury is still out on exactly how many ADUs are being used as long-term housing versus other uses, but they are absolutely one tool that's helping increase supply. We're also seeing upper market multifamily projects continue to move forward because large projects are often the only way developers can absorb today's land and regulatory and construction costs. And affordable housing projects are also moving forward due to the credits, the financial modeling that comes with that. But there's a major category of housing that is not getting built at scale in San Diego. And we are not building enough missing middle housing, duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, townhomes, cottages, smaller ownership products that historically helped create middle-class neighborhoods, which is what we're talking about today. This is a solution that can help that missing middle. We're also not building enough entry-level ownership housing, moderate income workforce housing, or traditional single-family detached homes in coastal communities. And this matters because workforce housing, which this is a solution for as well, is where many teachers, nurses, public safety workers, hospitality workers, young professionals, and middle-income families should be able to enter the market and see the American dream of owning their own home. Instead, many are increasingly priced out of the communities where they work. And these factors independently increase costs, entitlement delays, uncertainty, regulatory layering, high land costs. That's another huge factor that contributes to the topic of what we're talking about today. Development street fees, construction and labor costs, And what we are left with is housing system that increasingly favors either very large projects or very small projects like ADUs while hollowing out the middle. There's also a growing generational divide emerging from the crisis here in San Diego, and Nicole will get into that after me. But for many longtime owners, rising home values have created significant wealth and stability. But for younger generations, middle income families, and first time buyers, housing increasingly feels unattainable. Today, the age in which people are able to enter and buy their first home is now in your 40s. It was in your 30s, and it used to be in their 20s. So it's becoming farther and farther away of a dream to obtain. And many are asking whether they will ever be able to buy a home in the communities where they grew up. That divide has economic consequences, workforce consequences, and social consequences to our entire region. At the end of the day, if San Diego is serious about addressing housing affordability, we have to move beyond slogans and confront the structural realities that make housing so difficult to deliver in the first place. So I'm very proud to be a part of this panel. Very proud to be here promoting and helping get out this solution of being able to have smaller lots that can help the missing middle, that can help the younger generation, that can help workforce housing, and can help our region overall. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Amy. Really great stuff there. Appreciate you. Nicole, I know you have some slides to share, and I think you have sharing capability, so take it away.
Thank you so much, Joey. Shared screen. Thank you for having me. My name is Lily. I'm the Executive Director of Our Time to Act. Our Time to Act has a mission of organizing powerful youth for an inclusive, equitable, and sustainable future that is primarily focused on housing justice. And I'm here today to talk about specifically the impact on youth in San Diego of this housing crisis and the potential for this policy. So first, analyzing the impact that this housing crisis is having on young people, youth and families are not able to stay in San Diego due to our growing housing crisis. The San Diego Unified School District has experienced a nearly 11% decline in student enrollment from 2015 to 2025, and student enrollment decreased from 102,207 students to only 93,893 between 2022 and 2023. And so if we continue to see this continuous decrease in the population of youth and student enrollment, we'll continue to see divestment from our schools, potentially schools shutting down, can lead to overcrowding in schools that remain open. So this is impacting not only youth who are seeking housing as adults, but also young people who are living in San Diego and have been born and raised in San Diego up to this point. But we're also losing a majority of the college graduates that the universities of San Diego create. So this includes UCSD, USD, and SDSU. Only 40% of the University of California, San Diego graduates stay in San Diego after graduation, and that number drops to even lower at 25% in terms of staying long-term in San Diego following graduation. Only 44% of the University of San Diego graduates stay in San Diego, and we see a slightly higher number at 61% of San Diego State University graduates staying, but it's important to note that this higher percentage is likely due to a much larger percentage of students at SDSU already being local when enrolling. The cost of housing is far outpacing the wages, and youth are entering a very difficult job market and an even harder economy. We're drowning in the expenses and cost of living in San Diego and in the US at large. The 2026 San Diego Housing Needs Report states that renters need to make $50.12 an hour to afford the average asking rent of $2,606. However, I want to kind of put this in perspective, especially because I know we love and respect a lot of elders on the call today, and I want to kind of highlight the perspective of young people and where our wages are kind of sitting at. The average starting salary in San Diego sits between $48,000 to $51,000, and that's only $23.08 or $24.50 an hour, respectively. So this is less than half what you need just to afford the rent. And so that puts the average cost of buying a home even further out of reach for young people, making it really inaccessible to stay here in San Diego. And so a policy that would both lower the cost of housing, increase the availability of missing middle income housing, and hopefully allow folks to start being able to purchase homes at that middle income level will take pressure again also off of the rental market as well as the for sale market, and kind of address both of these housing crises that we're facing, especially as young people are making up such a large percentage of the renters in San Diego. So this is unsustainable for San Diego's future. Youth demand changed. Nearly half of 18 to 29-year-olds in America are living with their parents, and those who aren't often rely on living with roommates to split costs. And so youth are experiencing homelessness are also severely undercounted, with many couch surfing or living in their cars. And so we're demanding action on this. San Diego must systematically change its housing and land use to eliminate segregationist law from our municipal code, and eliminating minimum lot sizes in single-family only zoned areas citywide is one essential step for that. If San Diego wants to remain a place that youth and families can live and thrive, change must come now. And so youth have been already taking action on this. Our Time to Act canvassed all 9 districts in the city of San Diego, and we knocked on 3,528 doors, collecting 321 survey responses, and we plan to continue that canvassing again soon. But so far, 81% of respondents said that they would be in favor of citywide elimination, 18% of respondents said they would need more information, but were generally supportive, and 1% of respondents, only 1%, said that they would not be in favor of the policy. We also asked what housing and land use issues were most important to them, and we found those to be elimination of segregationist housing policy, less expensive new construction and reducing the price of existing housing, and increasing density and capacity for public transit investment and walkability, all of which would be accomplished through the policy of citywide elimination of minimum lot sizes in San Diego. Using this information that we gathered, we created a coalition letter demanding the city of San Diego take action to eliminate minimum lot sizes in single-family zones citywide. And so far, sign-ons include, of course, List San Diego, Viet Voices, Youth Will, Young Democrats of San Diego County, Ride SD, San Diego Organizing Project, or SDOP, the Partnership of the Advancement of New Americans, or PANA, Mid-City Community Advocacy Network, or Mid-City CAN, Alliance San Diego, Chicano Federation, Alliance of Californians for Community Empowerment, or ACE, San Diego, California Pan-Ethnic Health Network, San Diego Youth, Young Democrats of San Diego County, San Diego 350, Student Civil Liberties Union, and Hayden Gore, candidate for San Diego Unified School Board. So really this emphasis on this coalition is elimination, again, of segregationist policy and really addressing these most pressing and urgent needs and housing issues of our community. And youth are taking and demanding action now. And thank you so much.
I told you Nicole was impressive. Thank you, Nicole. That's fantastic. Where do things stand? Ricardo and Gary have built this broad coalition that includes the BIA and others, home ownership opportunities for SD, that Nicole and her organization, a lot of really great organizations are part of this coalition. They've been pushing this idea, advocating for this idea. Ricardo and Gary especially have been down at City Hall lobbying. They've gotten a lot of good feedback, a lot of good response from council members and the mayor. The mayor's engaged. The mayor came out in December and said he's all in and wants to do something similar. Then there's been some workshops that Ricardo and Nicole and others have been invited to. Beyond that, though, very few details have been released, but I do know that the mayor and his team are hard at work. Ricardo, you want to fill us in a little bit more?
Yeah, thank you, Tony. So last December, Mayor Gloria announced a policy, Neighborhood Homes for All. The policy didn't have a lot of definitions other than it would allow townhomes and row homes homes in select single-family neighborhoods, but it was geared towards homeownership. And so really the city has been taking it upon themselves from December of last year to about summertime to do a public process and to talk it to the public. And then our understanding is in the summer, they will start to draft an ordinance for consideration by the council by either fall or spring of next year. And the other thing too is, as Gary mentioned, we're not alone in this space. Portland, Seattle, some of the cities in Raleigh, North Carolina, Bill Anderson, who's on this call, sent us some stuff from Nashville. People are coming to the very same conclusion, which is it's about the land. It's about the land. And it's about the fact that Nicole and a whole generation of young people cannot consume the same amount of land as the baby boomer generation could, and some of the Gen X generation has also been able to do. And so it's all about the land, and it's about allowing them the opportunity to consume less of it if they desire, and also allowing a generation of homeowners the opportunity to subdivide their land, especially our boomer generation, because it allows them to actually liquidate their land, but still stay in their home, pay the same tax rate that they currently pay, but at the same time put some money in their pocket so that they are not cash poor, house rich, because that could be a reality. And so it's a win-win for all of us, let alone, and this is the last thing I'll say, Tony, is it allows for potentially compounds. Nicole and her family living on a townhome with maybe her parents or even her grandparents. It creates a compound effect, which again allows families the opportunity to live, work, and play in our city.
Thank you, Ricardo. The next section, I think, is the most important section of this entire presentation. What will make or break this proposal? Ricardo, Gary, and Amy are going to weigh in there and enlighten us all. I think it'll be helpful, Ricardo and Gary, to share some of the feedback, some of the questions that you all have received when you're sitting down with council members and the mayor. And take it away. Thank you.
Well, maybe I'll start. I don't know that the city can mandate it, but there was a big concern about garages, that each home have a garage. And there's no reason. I mean, I owned a row home, and I've talked to lots of architects. There's no reason why we can't plan a garage in every unit so that doesn't sort of put cars on the street, which is really the main pushback that we're getting here. So I think that's probably a big one in terms of feedback that we receive, particularly from council members.
I think the other one too that we've heard a little bit is how do we ensure that these are for homeowners, right, not renters? And again, that's a challenge, right, because we all have property rights. But what I can say is that if you look around our county and other places, the reality is you're seeing more townhomes, and you're seeing more townhomes because people can't afford the land, and people want to own. Young people want to get in a position of home ownership. So that's the key. Go ahead.
I would only add that while our emphasis is on home ownership, I think it's perfectly okay if we develop townhomes where people can rent, because that's part of the reason people are leaving. Some people just can't or are not able yet, or maybe don't want to own, but they still aren't being accommodated in the kind of housing that's being built today. So we don't want to take rental out of the equation. And I also wanted to add that big concern that I have from a regulatory perspective is that what I use the term that the city doesn't put hair on the deal. What I mean by that is we did another study, which is available to everybody, which in detail says that if you start to require one or more below market rate housing in these kind of small projects, or a fee in lieu of, these projects aren't feasible anymore from an investor and a developer's perspective. So it's really important, and Tony, you alluded to this at the front end, that we encourage the city council not to add any kind of extra regulations to this, because this is not the place to do that.
And I'll jump in on that
Well
too.
said. Well said. I'm gonna I'm gonna bring Amy into the conversation. Amy, you've obviously been around City Hall, chief of staff to a mayor, then number two over at the chamber. You understand housing policy, politics. What's going to make or break this, Amy?
I think what Gary just talked about is putting ornaments on the tree, hair on the dog, complex, making it more complex, paralysis through analysis, and lack of follow through. Getting stuck in discussional loops where at the end of the day, we just need to get it done. It's a good, solid idea and plan that can be implemented now. Um, Policies are not perfect. They never will be. And so I say my suggestion is strong suggestion is let's just get it going and let's put in safeguards that we can come back and look at things and see how things are going. Is it renters versus owners? Is it financial situations? Is it design issues? But let's get this going. But it is paralysis through analysis and putting a lot of hair on the dog, which is what's going to cause this not to happen.
We are already fully paralyzed. We've done so much analysis on this that it just, you know, it's pretty clear how this can work. I think the concern is that it isn't spread across a broad enough segment of our community. And in our studies, we looked at 9 neighborhoods reflecting a cross section from the most affluent to the middle to the least affluent communities. The savings is there across the board. We don't need the city to create regulatory complications nor geographical parameters that aren't necessary.
Well said. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Amy. Ricardo, you're in the business of affordable housing. I mean, you're a nonprofit bank who lends money to affordable housing developers so they can build affordable housing. So this is different than that. And so why is an affordable housing guy pushing middle income housing?
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, this is housing that is affordable, not affordable housing. Affordable housing, as we all know, is very expensive to build, and it's a challenge because you're essentially building a giant building and you're charging people way less rent than the market. The challenge here is that once people live in those very expensive units, there's nowhere for them to go. So many of the clients I work with, affordable housing developers, they want a middle product so that they can encourage families for potential homeownership or rental. So they can move them out and get them going along their next trajectory. The other thing too that I think is really important here is the nexus between this and taxes, property taxes, because affordable housing is expensive to build, and we really want to encourage the county and the city to have a line item, a yearly line item to help build affordable housing. And if there's increased revenue in the city, that will allow for that to happen, which could create more affordable housing. Because that's really one of the challenges of affordable housing is we do not have an actual line item every year that developers can count on. So they go to places like LA and the Bay Area where that is true to happen. So I completely agree. This is a different product, but it's a necessary product. And it's not the need to add different bells and whistles or hair on the deal. All that's going to do is price out the same people we're trying to help, which is young people like Nicole and others. How do we get them housing at an appropriate amount so they can consume? Because again, once they buy, they will pay taxes. They will become part of our culture. They will become part of our city. That's what we want them to do. We want them to be successful.
Thank you, Ricardo. Nicole, I know that on the agenda you're not part of this section. I'm going to open it up for Q&A. There's a lot of people on the call. Anything you want to add, Nicole, before we do that?
Yeah, our Time to Act's focus and a lot of what we've also been discussing with coalition partners is also the history that Ricardo spoke to a little bit at the beginning. I think it's really important to name the history of this policy and these laws in our municipal code. It is critical that we address that history and remove systematic racism where we see it, and continue to be impacted by it. In San Diego and across the US. Exclusion has been built into so many of our systems and is very, very ingrained in housing at a lot of levels of policy. And so this is one policy that the lineage of this history is very clear. and it's long past time that we take real action on addressing it.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Ricardo, Gary, Amy. Obviously, a lot to discuss, a lot to think through. Appreciate all of you. Jessica Ripper, one of the smartest people I know on housing, is on the call. Haven't heard from her. Want to follow up with you, Jessica, get your thoughts on all this. Amy, you want to say goodbye to everybody? Final thought?
Final thought. Yes, of course. So I just a thought about the discussion on developer impact fees and infrastructure. I just want to point out and remind everyone that under Complete Communities, a citywide DIF infrastructure fund was created, and everything, a lot of it was consolidated. And the city currently sits on close to $500 million in collected DIF fees. That has not been spent and has not been used in the communities. And so as we talk about that, I think it's a point that everyone needs to be reminded of. Again, Complete Communities created a citywide DIF to make it more equitable for DIF fees to be distributed throughout communities, and specifically the underserved. And also the city's sitting on a lot of money right now. So I think we need to look at that and start looking at how that can go to the needs that are being talked about. But at the end of the day, we have to look at every solution possible. And this is a really good one to consider when it comes to development and getting people the rights to actually enter into the housing market. And I also just want to point out that a dense project doesn't necessarily pencil. So you can say, let's build 1,000 units and it will make more money. That doesn't necessarily work a lot of the times. And I think that's a misnomer that people have, a misperception about when penciling and financing out for development projects. But I wanted to thank you all for being a part of this. And I look forward to doing what we can at the BIA to help out.
Thank you, everybody. We'll be in
Thank
touch.
you.
Thank you so
Tony. Thank
much.
you, Amy. Thank you, Gary.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for the panel.
Thanks all.